My name is Sue Smerick, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of the Ann Arbor area. I welcome you to our Zoom forum featuring candidates for the Michigan House of Representatives 52nd District. The candidates will be on the ballot on the November 3rd general election. This year, the League of Women Voters is celebrating 100 years of expanding voter rights, educating voters, and shaping and influencing legislation at the local, state, and national levels. We are pleased to sponsor these forums. The League is a nonpartisan civic organization that encourages informed and active participation by all citizens in government. While the League does not support candidates or parties, we do support issues and take stands on them that we have studied. One of the League's most important goals is to assist voters in making informed choices at the polls. And thus, we bring you tonight's program. Our moderator this evening is Jeff Smerick, who will explain the format and get us started.
Thank you, Sue, and thank you everyone for joining us. And now it's my honor to introduce the two candidates running for the Michigan House of Representatives 52nd District, Representative Donna Lasinski and Mr. Greg Marquis. Welcome, candidates, and thank you for participating in this forum. The forum today will have this format. Each candidate will have an opening statement of up to 1 minute. Each candidate will have a closing statement of up to 90 seconds. In between, I will ask questions which came from the Washtenaw County community. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to respond to a question. At appropriate times, a sign on the screen will indicate the time remaining, 30 seconds, and then stop. If you have used up your time, you will be allowed to finish your sentence, and then your microphone will be muted to allow the other candidate to have an equal opportunity to participate. The candidates will begin speaking in alphabetical order. Depending on the number of questions, all candidates will have an opportunity to be the first or last to answer the questions. And now to the opening statements. Representative Lasinski, may we have your opening statement, ma'am? Oh, you have to unmute, Representative.
I got it. I'll get the hang of it. Yes, thank you so much for having me here tonight. I am very excited and grateful that the League of Women Voters puts forth the effort to make sure that everyone in our community has the chance to meet us, to hear us, answer questions, and to have this opportunity, particularly during the pandemic, to continue to engage as citizens. I'm running for my third and final term. I'm term limited for the State House of Representatives. I'm very proud of the work that we've done together as a community in the 52nd House District, from focusing on increasing funding for education, which has paid dividends as we've headed into this pandemic, where all of our school districts have had options and community discussions to have in-person schooling or at home. The work we've done to increase standards so that we have more clean water and banded together to fight to make sure we can eat the fish from our lakes and rivers. And finally, our very local issue, broadband internet access. So thank you. I look forward to this evening's questions.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. And now, Mr. Marquis, may we have your opening statement?
Hi, good evening. I'd like to also thank the League of Women Voters for having us tonight. As I've said before, I'm not a career politician. I'm a hazardous materials specialist at the University of Michigan. I work in the business of collecting and coordinating the disposal of hazardous waste from one of the most diverse and largest chemical waste streams in the state. And in addition to that, coordinate a significant amount of recycling of everything from light bulbs to electronics. The other thing we do is we collect, we respond to hazardous waste and hazardous materials spills on campus. I decided to run because I've been asked by people from both ends of the political spectrum. They've told me they have faith in me and they wanted to see me run, and they convinced me that it was the right thing for me to do and this was the right time.
Thank you, candidates. And now to the questions. As a reminder, I will be reading each question once, and it will not be repeated unless I'm requested to repeat it. The first question starts with Mr. Marquis. Through today, more than 128,000 Michiganders have been infected with COVID-19, and approximately 7,000 Michiganders have died from COVID. What does Michigan need to do going forward to control the COVID pandemic?
I think the real key lies in each and every one of us. I think the governor has done all that they can to encourage people through social distancing, the wearing of masks, but it really falls on each of us as individuals to comply with that. We can enforce mask wearing through laws, we can enforce social distancing, but what it really comes down to is all the laws in the world aren't going to work if people won't comply. And so we really have to comply with mask wearing, social distancing, repeatedly washing our hands, sanitizing common surfaces. I think that those are the things that are really going to help us turn the corner until a viable vaccine and treatments are found.
Thank you, Mr. Marquis. Representative Lasinski, same question. Oh, you have to unmute.
I tell you, so I usually work off of 2 screens, and for some reason that makes it easier for me because I can, I don't know, at any
Very
rate.
good. Anyway.
So thank you. So with 128,000 folks who have been tested positive, as well as the 7,000 deaths, we've absolutely seen exactly what Mr. Marquis states, is that it's individual responsibility at this point. Just like for those of us who have volunteered in classrooms for years, we all know that as soon as a kid sneezes on you, the first thing you say is, hey, in your elbow. Right? These are things that we can work with and we can do. What I'm really particularly proud of for us in the 52nd House District is how our small businesses and our businesses have responded and reacted. We have seen that our businesses have placed a real priority on a healthy workforce, that they know that their employees want to come to work healthy and go home to their families healthy. And because of that, we've seen some great participation from employees and employers in making sure that, of course, there's an ambulance coming by, I apologize, in making sure that their employees have the personal protection equipment, that our schools have that in place, and that we're really taking care of each other in that way as well. Because we know without the local Meijer open, without Bush's open during the pandemic, we all would have been in an awful lot of trouble. So it's taking care of each other in that way too, that we respect the places that we visit and we respect the workers who have shown up for work every day for us. And our business owners have done a good job there in providing and making safe workplaces for the employees and for consumers.
Thank you, ma'am. And Representative Lasinski, you have the next question.
Okay.
The League of Women Voters has consistently advocated for access to voting. There is opposition these days to absentee mail-in voting, as well as concerns with the ability of the United States Postal Service to deliver ballots. The president even recently told people to try to vote twice, which of course is a felony. What challenges do you see for safe access to voting in Michigan?
One, the biggest challenge to safe voting in Michigan is false statements. Let's be very clear about that. As Michiganders, we have a long, proud history of absentee ballot voting. I know I've utilized it for many years, as has my husband, as both of us, work full-time jobs, myself as a small business owner, in order to make sure we were available to vote on that day. That day, we've used the privilege of absentee voting. Now it's really vote from home. It's no reason. You don't have to have a reason. You can choose to vote by mail, to vote from home. When we see the rhetoric, and again, I must say it is false rhetoric, that drop boxes are going to be dangerous, that our clerks aren't going to be able to count the ballots, that, again, you should vote twice. Again, a felony. I can tell you I have bills in front of me in the House tomorrow that are criminal penalties for voting improperly. They're already the penalties that are in place. They're simply a restatement of the penalties because there's political rhetoric that says, well, we want to punish people who vote improperly. We've always had those penalties, and we've held our elections dear. Again, when I've talked to our local clerks, I'm so proud of them, the preparation they've made. I know in my home township of Scioto, over 100 people have offered to be poll workers, and the average age has moved, I believe, from 65 to 38 years old in terms of the pool of poll workers. Folks want secure, safe elections. It's our duty as elected officials, from the local clerk to the county clerk to every poll worker, to ensure that. And again, the biggest danger is the rhetoric. The second is the delays at the post office. So for that, I say 10-20-20. If it is after October 20th, 2020, take your ballot to a drop box. Take your ballot to a clerk. Let's not make the mistake that we're trusting a system that the president himself has said he has tried to hobble. So 10-20-20, keep it on your mind.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. Now, Mr. Marquis, same question to you, sir. And you need to unmute. You need to unmute. There you go.
There we go. The quirk of a wireless mouse. It's my main concern with mail-in voting, having been on the County Board of Canvassers, is that the absentee voter count boards, may find themselves overwhelmed. And I've seen that, and we've seen some issues with that in the past, where it seems like the absentee count boards have had some issues. That being said, if those issues can be resolved, and if we can get enough people to volunteer to be election workers, to be on those AV count boards, that should help alleviate that problem. Myself, I personally want to go to the poll and put my ballot into the ballot counter and see it go in and be counted. I feel more secure that way. But I also know that that's not an option for everyone, and everyone may not feel safe doing that. I hope that people can get their votes in early, as Donna was saying. The earlier you get your vote in, the better. And I understand that now, as long as a vote's received by the clerk, by the close, or postmarked rather, by the close of the 3rd, that ballot will be counted. So as long as it's, my understanding is, as long as that is postmarked by election day, that ballot will count. So personally, I like to vote in person, but I know that not everybody can do that, and not everybody feels comfortable doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Marquis. And you have the next question. Thousands of Michiganders have lost access to their health care as they have lost their jobs. What can the state of Michigan do to address access to health care at this precarious time? What needs to be done to update or renovate Michigan's public health system for crises such as we're experiencing these days?
That's a good question. I'm in a position where I have a good healthcare provider, and I think that certainly we need to have a safety net for those who lose their jobs. I know that the Affordable Care Act was supposed to provide such a safety net, but I don't know what has happened with that. So unfortunately, I don't have a good answer for that at this time. I wish I did. I don't know that there is a good answer in the short term, but hopefully in the long term, we can find affordable health care for every one of our citizens.
Thank you, sir. And Representative Lasinski, same question to you.
Good, thank you very much. As we know, healthcare is one of the most complicated issues out there, as Mr. Marquis stated. It really is a complex interweb between federal regulation and state programming, block grants, monies, Medicaid, Medicare, Healthy Michigan, the Affordable Care Act. A couple things are very clear. The Affordable Care Act was designed that if you were a low-wage worker whose company did not offer health care, or you worked a consistent 37.5 hours per week, so your employer wasn't obligated to provide you health care, yet your wage was just high enough, maybe $12 an hour, so you didn't qualify for a Medicaid program. The Affordable Care Act was intended to be there for those circumstances. I did sign a resolution sent to the federal government asking the president to open up the Affordable Care Act enrollment. That enrollment period is typically one time per year. We were requesting that during the pandemic, as we were seeing so many people lose their employment temporarily, or that may become permanent, that they would be allowed to purchase for themselves healthcare insurance, and that the enrollment period be opened under these very, very terrifying circumstances that we're under for many. Unfortunately, that request has been rejected time and again. What we have as options in Michigan then relate to Medicaid. And so with that, folks who have spent down their assets, folks who have very little in the bank, do have the opportunity, if they've been driven to that point, either by a health crisis that they've had to pay for, or simply by a loss of income that has drained their savings, they have the ability to apply for Medicaid or to apply for Healthy Michigan. Healthy Michigan is a tremendous program where we expanded it took the Medicaid expansion a number of years ago and really made it available to working age people.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. And you have the next question. This week, our state Senate passed Senate Bill 757, which will allow local clerks to start processing, though not counting, absentee ballots early. Our clerks have been stressing the need to be able to prepare for the record 2.1 million requested absentee ballots early so they can deliver accurate and timely election results. How would you vote on this Bill 757 to help clerks start processing absentee ballots?
Thank you. Actually, I thought I might have the opportunity to vote on that today. However, there still are a few negotiations going on right now. That bill did pass the Senate, and for that early counting opportunity, which was set up exactly like that. Let me take a step back. There's a difference between counting and processing. The absentee ballot is you fill out your ballot, you put it in an envelope, you seal that, and then you put it inside a secrecy envelope, seal that. That goes inside an envelope and gets sent to the clerk. So as you can imagine, just in physical steps in opening those envelopes, there's quite a bit of work. And so what that bill 757 that allows early processing does is it simply allows clerks to start to open the envelopes, to reveal the secrecy envelope, to sort those for counting. But the ballot counting would not start until election day, excuse me. Unfortunately, it looks like there's going to be an added criteria to that, which is that the community has to have 25,000 or more residents. Now, unfortunately, what happens is in Lima Township, Lodi Township, Freedom Township, and others, is that we don't have the high-speed ballot processing machines that the larger counties do. And so we are not only not going to be able to be allowed to process early, but we also don't have on hand the high-speed machinery that allows them, once they're open, to be processed very quickly. I have raised my voice a number of times that population threshold is unnecessary. We'll see if we can get that amendment taken up by the majority party. But at this point, I'm a little bit doubtful on that and disappointed. I know for some of our larger population centers that will be helpful, but we need the help in communities no matter what size to be able to do that. So I am supportive of it.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. Mr. Marquis, same question to you, sir, and you need to unmute.
I'm going to have to concur that I think that it's a good idea for us to be able to begin processing these ballots early. As I mentioned before, for my time on the Board of Canvassers, what we saw was that the AV count boards were having a slightly hard time. I think they've improved quite a bit, but I think that if we don't have some aspect of processing in advance, they certainly will be overwhelmed in a general election. I think that not only are we going to see a record number of mail-in ballots, but I think we're going to see a record turnout this election in general. So we need to take some of the pressure off the clerks and off the count boards.
Thank you, sir. And Mr. Marquis, the next question goes to you. In August, Michigan's unemployment rate was 8.7%. Despite some recent rebound, Michiganders are still heavily burdened by unemployment with the inability to pay for housing and other necessities of life. Under these circumstances, what can the state of Michigan and local governments do to support Michiganders who are unemployed and small businesses that are in trouble?
Now, that's a great question. Well, you know, we talked about this before the event, that people are hurting and businesses are hurting. We're seeing small businesses going under that will probably never reopen. We need to have an environment in our state where businesses can reopen, where people can work safely. As we mentioned earlier, people going to work, you've got to wear masks. If we can get people to participate, wear masks, social distance, we can begin opening more and more businesses and getting people back to work. When I drive by businesses and I see them shut down because of the crisis, I know that means a lot of people are unemployed. And I think that we need to find a way to reopen businesses, both small and large. And we need to do so in a fashion that's safe. I think perhaps going forward, we may need to have a look at our tax and regulatory structure so that businesses can get on their feet again and get our economy rolling again. I think that I heard that we're behind the curve when it comes to unemployment. I've heard that we still have a ways to go before we catch up with much of the rest of the nation in the unemployment, but I think it's doable. I think that we can get people back on their feet. And I think that we can get Michigan rolling again.
Thank you, Mr. Marquis. And Representative Lasinski, same question to you, ma'am.
Thank you. This is the challenge we face, and this is a basic philosophy that we have seen competing points of view on over the last several decades. You know, there's this. We've debated what is the idea of a common good. What does a social safety net look like? How much do we all participate in that together, and who reaps the benefits of it? We have seen some very positive things at the state level. We have an eviction diversion fund. What we know is when you start the cycle of someone becoming homeless, kicked out of their home, the cycle that, particularly if they have a child or two in the home, when the children can't attend school, then it's hard to get employment. When you're moving around, your food insecurity, you start a spiral, a downward spiral for folks that's often very difficult to recover from. So eviction diversion funding has been critical. Now, that's just not for people, quite frankly, that's also for landlords, because when you don't pay your rent, it's your landlord, it's the business investor there who's having to still float their mortgage. So you may be able to, some of those, actually a good portion of those eviction diversion funds are actually aimed at the landlord. So when the landlords delay or reduce rent, they have funding to continue to pay their mortgage on the property, because if the landlord loses the property, the folks still lose their home. And so that's a careful balance there, helping people and helping folks who have made investments in property. When we're talking then about the necessities of life and unemployment, Michigan is recovering at a faster pace than other states because we're keeping COVID in check. This is one time Michigan is moving out of a recession. We're usually first in, last out. We're moving out quicker than other states. And the necessities of life, we know that's a shared burden between our local communities and state and local government. And that is where we have to prioritize that social safety net for all.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. And you have the next question.
Okay.
School is not.
Twofers are interesting because there's just two of us exchanging the questions.
That's right. That's right.
Two in a row.
And we're lucky to have you both. So the next question begins with you, ma'am. School is now beginning for K through 12 and post-secondary schooling, but there is ongoing risk of infection from the deadly COVID virus. How should Michigan protect students and teachers and staff from COVID? How should we move forward with the epidemic while continuing to provide for quality education of Michigan students?
Absolutely. The return to learn plan, the return to school plan that we passed out of the legislature had a couple key components that were really critical to me and that I advocated for extremely hard. One was local decision making. You know, we saw just in the Dexter School District alone that they held a Zoom meeting. They have about 1,500 families, parents, 1,700 parents. They had 1,100 show up that night on Zoom to be able to give their feedback and input on how they would feel safe for their students, for their family. That local decision-making about what was safe and correct for families in different areas, to me, was a priority. I did not believe, and we did not pass a one-size-fits-all process for K-12 schools for our state, and that was critical to me. I currently have a student at home learning, a higher ed student who's made the decision to do his online learning for his college from home. I have one that decided to return to college and is living on campus. And so as we look to that, we have to, again, have safe protocols. When you're a teacher in a classroom, if you're doing in-person classroom, PPE has to be available, good hygiene, good sanitation. We have to make sure that there is adequate testing when there appears to be any type of problem. And we have to make sure we do the contact tracing so that when we have incidents, which across the county we've had a few, we can do the contact tracing and see if it comes from the school environment or if it's coming from somewhere else, particularly now that sports are restarting again. And so as we do that, it's a combination of safe protocols, parent choice and decision, student choice and decision, safe working environments for teachers, and active testing and contact tracing so we can remedy any situations that arise.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. And Mr. Marquis, same question to you, sir. And you need to unmute.
There we go.
There we go.
This question hits home in more ways than one. First of all, I have a daughter who is going to be 13 next month, and I also work in a very large educational institution. So I see a lot of students, including my own daughter, struggle somewhat with the online learning. On the other hand, I don't want to see her go into an environment that's going to make her or the rest of the family sick. Likewise, I see the same thing at the university, where we have to strike a careful balance between in-person learning, online learning, and safety. So hearing what Donna just mentioned about local decision-making governing how this is done makes a lot of sense, because there are communities, say in the Upper Peninsula, that have very few cases, and it may not make sense for them to go to online learning only, whereas larger districts that are more densely populated, that might be the only way that's going to keep people healthy. It's going to be a struggle for the foreseeable future at both the K through 12 and the college levels. You know, it's a little disturbing knowing what's going on in COVID, and then to drive by certain facilities, seeing a bunch of people playing basketball, no masks, no shirts. It's like, wait a minute, guys, what's going on here? So I think it starts to return again to personal responsibility, but we are, as parents, as members of the educational community, we are struggling with how to provide an education and stay healthy at the same time. And it's a balancing act.
Thank you, Mr. Marquis. And this brings us to our final question for this evening. And that goes to begin with to you again, Mr. Marquis. Last week, Governor Whitmer, in partnership with the legislature, announced the Futures for Frontliners program. It is a tuition-free community college opportunity for frontline workers without college degrees that prepares students to complete a high school diploma or equivalent and to receive job training to prepare for jobs that are in demand. These essential workers put their health and lives on the line to help the rest of us stay safe in the COVID epidemic. Could you comment on this Futures for Frontliners program, and do you support it?
I would say I wholeheartedly support this. It's good to see the governor and the legislature working together. That's been a sketchy relationship for some time, but I think that they're moving in the right direction with this. I'm hoping that many of these essential workers will go into skilled trades. We have a terrible shortage of skilled tradespeople in our state right now. We need to educate more people to be electricians and plumbers and elevator mechanics. These are good paying jobs, and we can't fill them. If we can get some of these essential workers into positions like this, we can get more people to work. We can fill these skilled trades positions. And it certainly helps if they can have some tuition ease in the process.
Thank you, sir. And Representative Lasinski, same question to you, and you need to unmute.
Thank you. So absolutely fantastic. This is something I'm very excited about and something that we've been working towards for a long time. When we laid the original groundwork for this, it was really looking, quite frankly, at all people in the state of Michigan, and the idea, could we move towards a 2-year degree certificate program where the state paid the last dollar? So grants and other things, but that there was a last dollar gap that we would be able to offer citizens of the state of Michigan the opportunity to complete a 2-year degree. Right now, it's defined as futures for frontliners, and the other term you used was essential workers. So I want to take a moment to define that. You know, we typically thought of essential workers when we first thought of that as our police, our fire, our nurses, our doctors, those folks that in those urgent care situations. What's really exciting about this package and why it's called Future for Frontliners is because it's talking about the grocery store clerk, the pharmacy tech who took your order, the 16-year-old kid who is at the CVS ringing you out. These folks who showed up to work every single day. And quite frankly, those workers often right now, the ones who are essential workers who kept us humming while those of us have the types of jobs who you could work from home for, are typically our lowest wage workers. So we had the situation where the lowest wage workers were often taking the highest daily risk. I know I have a young friend of mine who didn't miss a day of work at Meyer and was exposed every single day. So as we look at this and as we look at skilled trades, this program for folks who are joining an electrical apprenticeship or that wouldn't need this program. Those always have been provided for free by our unions from their working wages. This is a nice supplement for folks to get that high school degree so they can get into a union program, or for a pharmacy tech, a med tech, those other trades that help them build a future and a career.
Thank you. Thank you, candidates, for these questions and your excellent answers. And now it's time for the closing statements. We will begin with Representative Lasinski. May we have your closing statement, ma'am?
Thank you. Again, I'm Donna Lasinski, and I am seeking re-election to the 52nd House District. I appreciate the time and interest you've put in tonight learning about the service that I've provided to the state and the service I hope to continue, as well as my thoughts and concerns on critical issues. As we move forward through the pandemic, it has definitely laid bare issues that we always knew we had in the 52nd House District. Issues like clean water to keep us safe and healthy. Issues about access to health care for all of us, to be healthy, to be able to go to work and return home healthy. It has laid bare how important broadband internet access is to every single one of us. When we look right now at the proportion and number of students who simply don't have access to learn from home, for the parents who have to work from home or are working from home, even if they previously thought they had access because they were working off a hotspot in their home, it's clearly been shown to be insufficient during this pandemic. I commit to you that if I'm reelected, I will continue to throw my heart and soul into clean water, education, restoring our economy and supporting our small businesses, and engaging and expanding that broadband internet access. Thank you for your time this evening, and I ask for your vote for state representative in the 52nd House District.
Thank you, Representative Lasinski. And Mr. Greg Marquis, may we have your closing statement, sir? And you need to unmute. There you go.
Thank you again. I'm going to keep this brief. I'd like to thank you again, thank the League again for having us both tonight. As we move forward, recovering from COVID-19, the state's going to have to make some tough choices. There's likely to be a significant budget shortfall. And as the crisis progresses, we can either raise taxes, which will further drive businesses and people from our state, or we can create a tax and regulatory environment that will draw businesses to our state. Furthermore, we need an environment in our state at all levels that is inclusive of all of our residents. We also need to ensure that law enforcement is well trained and treats all of our citizens equally. I'd like to take a moment to thank you all for your time, and God bless.
Thank you, Mr. Greg Marquis. And thanks to all of you for participating in this valuable session. I will now turn this back over to Sue for our closing comments.
The League wishes to thank the candidates for participating in tonight's forum and to those who offered questions. All of our candidates' forums will be available for streaming on your computer or smartphone. Go to our website, lwvannarbor.org, and look for the link to the programs. In addition, the forums can be viewed on the Community Television Network. Please urge your friends and neighbors to watch these forums as well. For additional nonpartisan information on candidates and ballot issues, go to vote411.org. The League's voter resource guide covering local, state, and federal candidates, as well as current proposals that will appear on your ballot. As a reminder, all registered voters may cast an absentee ballot. With the changes that have been created by COVID-19 and confusion regarding registration and voting procedures, the League encourages you to vote as soon as possible after you feel knowledgeable about the candidates and ballot issues. The most important thing is to make sure you vote in the November 3rd general election. Good night.